Welcome to Cooking with PRTC. I'm your host, Mark McRoy, and today we're going to cook a low country favorite of shrimp and grits. We're going to start off with some butter peas, a little salt, pepper, onion, and bacon to season it with, and that way we'll have a nice side to go with it. We'll be right back and get started. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back to Cooking with PRTC. I'm your host, Mark McRoy, and again, today we're cooking shrimp and grits. We're going to start off with butter peas. To season the butter peas, I always like bacon. It lubricates the pans well, keeps the product from sticking together, and it just gives it that great flavor. I'm going to start this off and then just throw this in the pan and get it started. Always love that sound. Stir it up a little bit so it'll break up. And let that brown while we're cutting up our onion. Said this before, always use a sharp knife. Sharp knives are great, and they hurt a lot less when you cut yourself. Cut away from yourself and push the blade. It's always easier, if you're doing this, is to use a lot of onion. I got that backwards. Use a little bit of onion. It's easier to put more onion in because you darn sure can't take it out. But we're going to let the bacon brown, and then we're going to put this in top. So let these two cook together. Okay. For seasoning, we're going to keep it simple. Salt, pepper, a little garlic salt, and we're going to use some chicken bouillon. Chicken bouillon's fine if you don't have it. This is chicken broth, and it comes, you can get low sodium. I prefer the frozen butter peas. If you use canned ones, they usually have about 240 milligrams of salt in them. This allows you to control the salt and also the flavor. If you use canned items, there's nothing bad about canned items. They last forever. But again, this lets you control how much salt you're putting in. If you're watching blood pressure like I am, it always helps keep the salt down. Stir that up a little bit. Keep it from sticking. This time of the year, the white onions and yellow onions are great. When they come into season and all your different civic organizations start selling them, I really love the Vidalia onions. A little bit of sweetness in there doesn't hurt anything, and you'll never tell the difference. Okay. That's going to continue to cook while we put it in there. So we can go ahead and get started with these butter peas. You do not have to let these thaw. That's the great thing about them. You can put them in there frozen. The butter pea doesn't know the difference, and it'll just keep on cooking. Okay. Couple extra on the ground. It's always good for decorations. Gives you something to clean up when you're done. Okay. About a half a cup to start with of the chicken broth. Probably going to end up adding a little bit more of that. A little garlic salt. Never go bad with that. And for those of you measuring, let's call that a teaspoon. Black pepper, same thing. About a teaspoon. Okay. And just a little bit of red Hungarian salt, just for fun. Put that on a low heat. Call it a medium heat. We'll put that on a medium heat and let that cook. Good 30, 40 minutes will be fine. If it sits in there for an hour, it's not going to overcook. Just turn the heat down, and it'll let the flavors get together. A little bit more onion gets into the butter peas, and the bacon, all it's going to do is taste better as we go. And we'll come back and we'll get started with the grits. Thanks again for joining us. Welcome back to Cooking with PRTC. I'm your host, Mark McRoy, and we're going to get started now with the grits of our shrimp and grits. We've already put the butter peas on. I did add another cup of water just so that it would have something to simmer in. And again, we're going to let that cook for a couple hours. Will be fine. 30 minutes will be good too. We're just trying to bring it up to temperature. The longer it cooks, the more the flavors get together. With the grits, we're going to simple 4-to-1 recipe. I like yellow grits. Some people like stone ground grits. I stay away from instant grits. They just have no texture to me. But the quick grits, you can get those in 30 minutes or you can let them cook for 2 hours and they're fine. The stone ground grits, I just never have been able to get those to a consistency or texture that I like. We're going to have a yellow grits. We're going to have chicken bouillon with it, or chicken broth, a little butter, and some salt, pepper, and garlic salt, as always. Add a little cream, and of course, just a touch of hot sauce. And we'll get started with that right now. First, 4-to-1, we're going to have 2 cups of chicken broth. And 2 cups of water. If you really like the flavor of the chicken, use it 3-to-1. I find half and half is just perfect. I'm going to bring that to a boil. Put a little, about 1/3 of a stick of butter in there. A little red salt, or pink. A little garlic. My daughter says I go a little crazy with the garlic, so we're going to cut that down. She calls it garlicking it up. And again, about 2 teaspoons of hot sauce. Bring that to a boil. And then we'll add the grits, let it get thick, and we'll put the cream in on it. We've let the water come to a boil, or the water and chicken broth mix. 4 ounces of liquid, 4 cups, excuse me. And then 1 cup of grits. Stir that a little bit so it won't clump up. You could dump it in there and walk away from it, then you're going to end up with a grits ball. Just kind of weird. As always, I wish you could smell this. It really is great. Okay. With the quick grits, 15 minutes, and it'll be at the consistency you want. 4-to-1 is what the recipe calls for. That would make it very, very thick. So what we're going to do is let it get to and it's already thickening up right now. What we're going to do is let it get a little thicker, and then we're going to dilute it with cream and a little butter, and it will be just about a little slice of heaven. Okay. All right, this has been on for probably less than 7 minutes. 4 cups of liquid, 1 cup of grits, quick grits, and you can see it's thickening up quite nicely. And we've got about 3 tablespoons of butter. This is just going to get it in there so it'll thin up a little bit. It's also going to make it a ton richer. Okay, and then we're going to let it simmer for an hour while we go over here and get ready for our shrimp. You see the color changes a little bit. If you're feeling really interested or a little adventurous sometime, you can put a little bacon in there or some onions. But we're going to keep it simple because we don't want it to take away from our wonderful shrimp we're getting ready to cook. Again, we're going to let that sit and simmer on low heat. And we're going to come back to that just before we get ready to serve, and we might add a little bit more cream after we add, just to get the consistency like we like. But we're going to let it sit for probably another hour, and we'll be right back after that, and we'll get ready to start with our shrimp. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Cooking with QRTC. I'm your host, Mark McRoy. We're going to make our bread right now to go with our shrimp and grits. We're going to cut it probably about an inch or so thick. Just something to add to it so you have to complement your butter beans and your butter peas, excuse me. A little olive oil, a little butter. Again, the olive oil helps cut down on the fat, and it also gives it all that wonderful flavor. What we're going to do here is we're going to toast the bread, put it under a broiler, top it with a little bit of garlic salt, some tomato, some mozzarella cheese, and again, just broil it. It's going to be fantastic. Spread it out, not too thick. I like it evenly just so it gives flavor everywhere. Some people say that's a little bit ridiculous, but let them cook it their way. Garlic salt. We're going to put it on our broiler pan. And get this in the oven until it browns. Then we're going to bring it back out, top it with tomato, and put a little mozzarella cheese on it. Okay. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Cooking with QRTC. We're going to finish up our bread right now, and then we're going to get started on our shrimp. Okay. Bring this out of the oven. As you can see, it's just a nice little golden brown. The great thing about this little recipe here is the tomato gives it a really good kick, and during the off season, the winter months, the tomato being broiled gets a lot more flavor. In the summer, you don't have to do that because you got great summer tomatoes. But in the winter, we have to do what we can. Okay. Roma tomatoes, for some reason, always seem to be better in the winter. I don't know if they're the gas houses they grow them in are better, but they do have a good flavor. These are just little ones that come already on a vine. I'm sure it's probably marketing, but it works because you think they're fresher than the individuals, but they taste delicious. A lot of people just wash the tomato and leave the skin on it. I'm sure that's a good source of fiber and everything. But I picked tomatoes for a summer one time when I was a kid, and I almost never got all the black stuff off my hand that they use for fertilizer, so I've never been able to eat a tomato with skin on it since then. I probably won't say this, but 6 or 7 times a day, use a sharp knife. You will be happy later. One thing, it cuts better, it peels better. You can do a lot faster work. I'm doing these kind of thin. The truth is the tomato has just, it really does, it has a great flavor. And you just don't need to have a whole lot of tomato on there. Okay. Split that up a little bit. That looks good. A little grated mozzarella. If you want to mix it up, put a little Parmesan on there at the same time. That's always good. If you're really feeling lucky and if you've been able to go to the store and get some, the fresh mozzarella balls that you can get are absolutely fantastic on this. But just the regular shredded or grated mozzarella, I don't believe you'll have anybody complain about it. Okay. So we've got butter and olive oil, we've got garlic, and we've got bread, tomato, and mozzarella cheese. Put this back in the oven for a couple minutes and it'll be done. Okay, we'll be right back. Starting out with a pound of shrimp. We've already started peeling a little bit of it. Our ingredients for the pan-fried shrimp, it's a little bit of a variation. Instead of having breaded shrimp, we're going to get our skillet nice and hot with butter and olive oil. Butter gives it the flavor, olive oil keeps down the fat. We're going to add a little bourbon. Let the shrimp sit in the bourbon for not more than 20 minutes. If you let it sit in there for over 20 minutes, shrimp is extremely delicate and it'll turn into rubber. One time I thought it'd be really good, so I put it in a jar and let it sit overnight. It was absolutely inedible. You could play handball with this stuff. It was terrible. Bourbon to me is like red wine or white wine. I like to cook with what I don't mind drinking. I prefer an Evan Williams type bourbon. I would not go as far as using Maker's Mark or Jack Daniel's or something high-end, top shelf bourbon, because you're not going to taste it basically. What we're doing here is just getting a bourbon flavor to it, and there's no sense in wasting, you know, $50 bottle bourbon on this because the alcohol is going to burn out of it, but you do want the bourbon flavor, so this will be fine. We'll step over here to our frying pan. We'll move our butter and garlic and Texas Pete, and we're going to get started. Let that sit. Like I said, anywhere from 5 minutes, not more than 20. More than 20 minutes, it just absolutely ruins the shrimp. All right. We've covered this before. I love to cook with cast iron. Put it in there and get it all nice and arranged. Again, the only thing that's terrible is you're not here to smell this. Shrimp's easy to cook. Put it in there. We're working with a pound of shrimp. A little bit of garlic. This gives it a little bit of a kick. It's not a lot. Texas Pete does not have a good, strong, or spicy texture to it, but it does have a wonderful flavor. The great thing about this, as soon as it changes color, you know it's done. And we'll flip it over, and we'll get started with the next batch. This does not take long at all. Pretty little local shrimp. I like to buy seafood fresh if you can. Sometimes a fork works better than a spatula. But you have some really good local seafood places here in town. We talked about the medium grade bourbon. If you like a high-end bourbon and that's all you got, use it. Right here in town, Louis down the street has probably the best selection of bourbons of anybody in the state. And believe me, I shop around. But you have two really good local seafood houses here in town. Three, actually. I'd forgotten about the other one. Down on South Jeffries. Okay. You see, it changed color. It's nice and pretty. And it's done. Nothing to it. We'll pull this out and put in the next batch. We've got butter and shrimp in there. If it all evaporates, put more in. But as you can see right now, we got plenty. Hotter the pan, the faster it'll cook. Don't overcook it. As soon as shrimp changes color, it's done. If you're boiling shrimp, put it in a South Carolina shrimp boil, Buford boil, whatever you want to call it, same thing. If you cook it and it changes color, it's done. You leave it in there any longer, it's going to turn into rubber. You might wonder why we're saving the bourbon. Because we're going to make something with it. Nice little, I don't know if it's a proper term or not, but a roux or whatever. We can put it on there and just put the bourbon in here with the butter and have it as a side dish. You can put it on your grits. If you really feel good, you can add a little gravy to it and make it thicker, or add some flour to it and make it thick, if you like. Those of you who are watching your calories like I am probably don't want to do that. But it does taste good. Okay. Flip that little guy right there over. And ta-da! We're done. That's all there is to it. Just like Mom used to make. There we go. Okay. Like I said, if you have some flour, or if you want to, you can put a little flour in there and make a white sauce or a gravy. We're not going to do that just because we're trying to watch our calories. Okay. But we are going to put this in a bowl and serve it as a side dish. So you can serve it over your shrimp or your grits, and it just adds another little flavor to it, a little bit extra kick. We'll be right back and we'll plate this up and see how everybody likes it. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Cooking with PRTC. I'm Mark McRoy, your host. We've got shrimp and grits today, a little French bread with some mozzarella cheese and tomato, and some baby lima beans, butter peas, excuse me, and a little au jus to go on top of it if you like it. We'll get right back and we'll have some people sample it and let you know if we had another success or not. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Cooking with PRTC. I'm your host, Mark McRoy. Our guests today are Paula and Will, and we're going to try our bourbon fried shrimp with butter beans and grits. And y'all dig in. We've got a little bit of the au jus left, which is the bourbon, butter, olive oil, and Texas Pete with some garlic. If you want to put that on the grits, it's fine. Again, you add a little flour to it, you make a really good gravy. The bread, fairly simple, Italian bread, sliced thin, butter and olive oil, garlic salt, tomato, and mozzarella cheese. Thanks again for joining us.
Very good.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Y'all, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again. Bye.